is, remember, sub-editing is more or less like what we call a newspaper. Without sub-editing, there is no newspaper, and without newspaper, there is no sub-editing. Now, the introduction is that this topic discusses the plan of a newspaper. This is design and typography. Design and typography topic, and it discusses on the plan of a newspaper. And we talk about a plan of the newspaper. We are talking about what the newspaper contains and the order in which. Put off your microphone. And put off your microphone because it is making a lot of noise. Yeah, we are saying topic. The topic is design and typography, and as I introduce this topic, I will say that it discusses the plan of the newspaper. That is what the newspaper contains and the order in which it is presented. Remember, a newspaper has got an order. You can't find international news on the first page or sports news on the first page unless it is newsworthy. Unless, let's say, for example, Kenya has won World Cup. That's when you'll find it in the first page of the newspaper. But as far as other news, sport news are concerned, you cannot get them on the front page of the newspaper. So it has an order. So this is an order in which if news is presented, it also focuses on the format, the balance of the content, which does what who does what in the editorial, designing the page, also designing the page. You are going to look at it. How are you supposed to design the pages? Designing workshops and headlines of a newspaper. How the headlines and workshops are supposed to be designed. So what are some of the objectives of this particular unit, of this particular topic? I suppose that at the end of this particular topic, you're going to be able to describe the roles of various personnel in the editorial. That you will know what is the purpose of an editor, or what are the roles of an editor. You will know, you'll be able to tell us the purpose of a reporter, etc. At the end of this topic, you must also be able to explain the influence of design and typography. Remember, typography is simply the layout of the newspaper. You're supposed to explain the influence of design and typography on readership. There was a topic I was teaching these people who are doing media management. This is semester 1. And we were looking at the influence of the editorial to the performance of the newspaper. So you come to realize that the editorial is one key actually key department that influences the circulation of the newspaper. Because if the editorial department does mistakes and come up with a very poor topic on a certain topic, on a certain newspaper or headline of a certain newspaper, that means people will not be able to buy that paper, because for people to buy newspapers, they actually are attracted by the headline. And once they are attracted by the headline, then they buy the paper. So the headline is appealing to people, more people are going to buy that particular headline. To buy that particular paper. And remember, the news, the media houses, they depend mostly on revenue that comes from advertising. So an advertiser will not advertise on a newspaper that does not attract audiences. It's just like taking your products to the market. You usually take the products to the market where there are many people passing by, where there are many people buying and selling. The same case with an advertiser. An advertiser will not advertise his products or services to a newspaper or to a media house that people rarely know about. So therefore, that means that the editorial department, if they make mistakes of coming up with very poor headlines, typography is very poor, the design of the newspaper is very poor, of course, people will not buy that newspaper. And that means that the advertisers will run away from you, or you are not going to attract any advertiser in your newspaper. And therefore, that means there is no revenue for you. There is no revenue from the advertisers, and there is no revenue from the buyers of the newspaper. So therefore, we say that editorial is one of the key areas or key departments in the newspaper. So therefore, that is objective number 2. We are saying that you must be able to explain the influence of design and typography on readership. The next point, or the next objective, is that at the end of this topic, you must be able to appreciate the importance of headlines to a news story, just like I have explained. If the headline is very poor, if the design is very poor, if the balancing of the content of the newspaper is very poor, the designs are very poor, the pages are poorly designed, then just know that that paper is not going to sell, and that tells you that that day you're not going to make revenue. And the moment it continues like that, all the advertisers, including small advertisers in the classified section, will run away, and therefore no revenue for you as a newspaper or as a media house. So those are our objectives. And then maybe I can start by maybe saying something that the plan, when you talk about typography, we are talking about the plan of a newspaper, what it contains, and the order in which it is presented is decided by the editor in consultation with the senior executives. So we are saying that the plan of the newspaper and what it contains and the order in which it is presented is usually decided by the editor in consultation. So he has to consult with other senior executives. So editorial space, which can vary day to day in response to the amount of advertising, can be shown at the start of each day or week in a dummy of a paper prepared by the editor. So in short, we are saying that in every newspaper production company, there is always a dummy paper, a dummy newspaper that is presented. This dummy newspaper usually tells us how the final newspaper is likely to look like. So that if there is anything that you can change, you work on the dummy, then you, after working on the dummy and everything is okay, then you can now finalize with the final copy. The advertising, so when you talk about that, we have said that the advertising company is, advertisers are very important in a newspaper because they're the one that brings about what we call revenue for the organization or for the newspaper organization to pay their overheads, to pay their staffs, to buy new equipment, to expand, to buy new vehicles for distribution and circulation, etc., etc. So without advertisers, then I don't think any news organization can be able to survive these challenging economic times. So when you talk about the newspaper, the front page of the newspaper is usually kept fairly clear, and it is often completely clear, and other key pages, including the back and the main feature pages, are kept right to accommodate non-editorial needs. So the number and shape of advertisement and where they are booked for can vary. Why? Because the advertiser is looking also at where there is very interesting news. For example, if you're talking about the news is the budget. If you're talking about the news being the budget, still at Safaricom will want to put their advert close to the budget, because they know that that is an area that has got a lot of impact on everyone who lives in Kenya, every Kenyan. Because once a budget is read, just know it has an impact of every person, including the people who are the children who are born and those who are unborn. So Safaricom will run to that particular space because that particular news will attract readers. So you realize that some trading of space might be possible between editorial and advertising department, but on the whole, advert once placed cannot be shifted. So once an advertiser has bought a space, it cannot be shifted. It remains like that. It cannot be shifted. That's why, for example, like today's newspaper, which contains, tomorrow's newspaper, let's say, for example, tomorrow's newspaper, it will contain the news that will be gathered today. So if you go to the editorial department and ask them to give you tomorrow's newspaper, you will only see adverts. Adverts will remain where they are, and they cannot be changed, because that is a space that has already been paid for by the advertiser. Changing that particular position to another position will actually, you as the organization or you as the editorial department, you'll be going against the memorandum of understanding between you and your customer, who are your advertisers. So therefore, that space cannot be shifted. Advertising also has to keep its one balance, as in it has to be whereby it is visible. The reader can be able to see it. Like, for example, if you put your advert on, say, for example, a newspaper has got 55 pages, and you place your advert on the 53 page. You see, now we have people who read the newspaper, and once they read the first 10 pages, they are done with that particular paper. And there are people who just look at pictures. They start from page 1 to the 56th page. So therefore, advertisers would want to put their adverts on a page whereby they know, if, for example, a reader is reading this particular newspaper, he'll be able to see our advert quickly and very fast. So that is what we call typography. Now we go to what we call format. Is there any question on typography? Michael?
No.
Kuna swali hapo kwa typography?
No.
Uliza. You're saying you have a question on typography. Can you ask that the question so that you can say
I'm saying no.
you have said no?
Yes.
Then we continue to what we call format. So number one, let me write here. Number one, we've talked about typography. And typography is simply the arrangement of the newspaper. Number two, we are going to look at format. Format. So if I ask you what is format, what is format?
No.
What is format? What do you understand with the term format?
It's the style and order.
Yeah, it is actually the arrangement. You can call it the arrangement. You can call it the setup. You can even call it the plan. So it is a plan, it is a presentation, it is a setup or arrangement of the newspaper. So you come to realize that all newspapers cultivate a visual format which is distinctively their own. So every newspaper has got their own format of writing news. For example, if you look at a standard newspaper, you look at standard newspaper, and if you look at the Nation newspaper, they are all different, even in format, even the way they present their news, even in their style, their design, their layout, they are totally different. That's why you can, even if we hide that particular title, the standard, and we hide that particular title of the Nation, and somebody shows you the newspapers, and asks you which one is the standard and which one is the Nation, you can actually tell. You can actually say this is the standard and this is the Nation by looking at it. By looking at it physically. So all newspapers have got different formats that actually differentiate it from another one. Even the page planning is usually very different. So when you talk about format, it means the consistent use of the same typography and style of presentation. That's why I'm saying if you're given Nation and standard and the titles are covered, you can be able to tell that this is Nation, this is what? This is standard, because of their consistent use of the same typography and style of presentation. Even the placing of themes such as sports, such as editorial, opinion, television program pages, you come to realize that they are different. They are differently placed. And this one is actually, the reason why we do this is actually to put in the minds of the viewer, of the reader, so that the reader knows exactly how a standard newspaper looks like, so that it can be recognized easily. Because a newspaper format, please, Michael, put off your microphone. A newspaper format is vital. Is vital. It's very important because it's a visual brand image. The visual brand image. It's like you're trying to build yourself an image in the minds of the readers, so that the reader will be able to know how the Star newspaper look like, even when given, maybe without even checking the title, you just know that this is the Star newspaper. So it builds what we call the visual brand image for that particular newspaper. It can be modified in various ways. So the format can be modified in various ways, both in content and typography. It can be modified. The reason why it can be modified is when you realize that this paper is failing in circulation. It's failing in circulation. When you talk about circulation, in media law, circulation means to lend, circulation means hire, circulation means also to sell, and circulation also means to own. So when you talk about circulation here, the reason why you can change the format of the newspaper is when you realize that it is failing to do what? It is failing to circulate. Like I remember some few years back, the standard was all black and white. It was all black and white. But it was relaunched. After it was relaunched, it now embraced the colored pictures. But then that is the standard. But the nation had already embraced the colored pictures long time ago. So the standard was relaunched in a new phase. Why we relaunch it is because it is failing in circulation. People are not buying this paper because number one, the pictures are black and white. Number two, they are not clear enough. The typography, the headlines are very small, something like that. Also, you can relaunch your paper if you want to change the market. If you want to change its market, maybe your market was to target the young readers or the youth. So if Nation wants now to target the youth, it can relaunch its paper by changing its format, everything. Because now the target has changed. The target is not the general public, but now the youth. And you come to realize that in all papers, specialist areas such as financial news, sports, and sometimes foreign news have their own part of the paper. That's very true. You come to realize that financial news, sports news, foreign news, etc. have their own parts. They are not mixed up. Some provisional papers bring out what we call separate sections on certain days and might sectionalize their advertising features or holiday. Like for example, Christmas, shopping, promotion, etc. So format is very important because format brings about what we call a visual image of the newspaper to the reader. Any question on format? We talk format. Kuna swali kwa format?
No.
No. So we go to balance of content. Balance of content. What do you understand when you talk about balance of content?
How the content blends with each other, with the other content.
For example,
how they relate.
Not per se, not like that. But when we talk about balancing of the content, balancing of the content simply means that the pictures that you have and the content that you have, when I say content, the written words that you have and the pictures that you have must be able to balance. Balancing means that you should not have many pictures and very few written words, or you should not have so many written words in a newspaper and maybe one very big picture. You see, it is not balancing in a way. The pictures and the content must be able to balance. So that's what we are saying. So therefore, it is very necessary to achieve what we call a balance of subject on the page and the visual balance of the text. headlines and pictures in relation to each other. So when you're balancing content, you should bear in mind or put into mind what we call the subject on the page, the visual balance of the text, the headlines, and the pictures in relation to each other. All of them should balance. You should not have a small, let's say, for example, a small headline and a very big picture and very little what we call text. That one is not balancing. All in all, we are saying that in the first place, we should be having what we call a very bold headline. Then after the very bold headline, have, let's say, for example, text that balances the headline and maybe the pictures that are good, pictures that are not so big pictures, so that when you look at everything, it looks like it is not balanced. So it will be unbalanced, for instance, to run all stories of gloom and doom, or death and destruction on one page. It will be very unbalanced if you run all stories of gloom and doom or death and destruction on one page, or to put all human stories on one page, or fill a page with stories without pictures. It will be unbalanced. It will look unbalanced. Account is also taken of the advertisement on the page. Take care of the advertisement on the page, so that the editorial part doesn't clash with either or in content. So it can actually be concluded that the essential points in planning an issue of a newspaper are, number one, balance of the editorial items in relation to each other. For example, news, sports, and features. Number two, balance of subject content, including pictures and advertisement with each other. And also preservation of the general shape of the paper's format. So in short, I'm saying this. In short, this is what I'm saying as far as balancing of the content is concerned, or balance of content. In short, this is what I'm saying. That balance of editorial items in relation to each other. For example, news, sports, and features. Two, balance of subject content, including pictures and advertisement with each page. And three, preservation of general shape of the paper's format. So from there, let's look at who does what. Remember, one of our objectives is to know objective number one is describe the roles of various personnel in the editorial. So let's look at who does what in the editorial department. Who does what? Who does what in the editorial department? First of all, we start by saying that editorial manning, to man is to take charge. Take charge. Editorial manning or editorial operation or managing. Editorial managing varies according to paper size. Yeah, that one is very true. It varies according to paper size. For example, if you have a very big paper, let's say for example Nation, you come to realize that Nation is a paper that is You cannot compare Nation newspaper with the Star newspaper. The Nation newspaper is bigger than the Star newspaper. So managing the Star newspaper is easier than managing Nation newspaper. Again, you cannot compare the Nation newspaper with the New York Times. New York Times is a very big newspaper compared to Nation. And so on and so forth. So big national dailies, big national dailies, such as what we call the New York Times, have a lot of executives. It has got a lot of executives, some with precise editorial functions, some with managerial, some with administrative or liaison roles, some with general overall responsibility for areas, and they're usually what we call the deputy editors, who actually deputizes in all in the editor's absence. So all these people have got deputies. Remember that if you have a very big newspaper, then you're going to have various staff working for you, a lot of staff working for you or for that particular newspaper. At the departmental level, there are more roles, defined roles. So the title of news editors, feature editors, and sports editors means that they are the head of the respective departments. So if you hear somebody being called the news editor, if you hear somebody called the feature editor or the sports editor in a very big newspaper industry or production company, then just know that these are the people who are the head of those particular departments. So let's look at what we call the role of an editor. Not editor, but the chief editor. No, but we can look at the roles of the night editors. Roles of the night editors and also the chief sub-editor. I'm sharing this with you. So number one, the role of night editors. Remember, night editors exist in a very big newspaper production company. So you're told that one of the role of the night editor is to produce a big daily or Sunday paper. These people, they work at night. Remember, there is a time we looked at the night editors. We said that they work at night. And we have those staff that work during the day. Like a reporter works during the day. Once he's done with his work, he goes home. Then the editors come at night. They're the one working for the newspaper at night. Because kazi yao bado haijaanza. Kama saa hii, talk about Nation newspaper, the reporters wako nje wanafanya nini? Wana collect news. Wakisha collect ile news, wataileta kwa the news desk. The news desk, then from the news desk, it starts now going to the various sections. By the time it is at night, the editors ndio watakuwa wanaingia ndio wa edit. So you come to realize that there are those people who work during the day for a paper, and there are those people who work at night, and their work starts at, let's say, for example, at 4 p.m. until the whole night, until 6 in the morning. So at 6 in the morning, that is when they are going home, or maybe at 4 a.m. That's when they are going home. Then at 6, the reporters are coming back to work. They work until 3 or 4. Then, like that, and the cycle continues. So the roles of a night editor, number one, is to produce a big daily or Sunday paper. Number two, the night editor does the physical. No, the night editor does the physical editing function of the editor. So the night editor is still an editor. So he does what? The physical editing function of the editor. The next thing, they gather material. They gather material and oversee the production cycle. So they have to go and see how the production is going on of the newspaper. So they have to man the, I'm not manning per se, but they have to check how the production cycle is happening. And this thing is happening at night. Remember, like today's newspaper, you will receive it tomorrow. So the reporters are already in the field collecting news. Suppose it is National Standard. That paper, today's news paper, that will have today's news, you will receive it tomorrow. So there is somebody who will be working at night to make sure that the newspaper is printed or it is ready by tomorrow morning. And that person is called the night editor. Or simply we can call them the editors. Then you have the chief editor or the chief sub-editor. If you hear sub-editor, just know that there is a chief editor. There is the editor. So his work is in charge of all the sub-editors. So the chief sub-editor is in charge of all the sub-editors. Remember, if you have an editor in political news or political news, if you have an editor in political news, there's always a sub-editor for political news. If you have an editor in local news, there is always a sub-editor in the local news, etc., etc. So the chief sub-editor, remember, is the chief. It's not the sub-editor. It's the chief sub-editor, meaning they are what we call chief edit. I mean, we have the sub-editors. This one is the chief sub-editor. So we have sub-editors. He or she oversees the duties of all the sub-editors during the production process. So those are of the night, the role of a night sub-editor, role of a night editor, and the sub-editor. I mean the sub-editor, the chief sub-editor, the chief sub-editor. We can call them editor-in-chief. We can call them editor-in-chief. Any question? Michael, do you have any question up to that point?
No question.
I hope you have understood.
Yes.
One point to note. On a smaller paper, some of these papers are merged. On a smaller paper, on smaller papers, they are merged.
Okay.
Actually, what you are saying, that the roles of the editor and the roles of the sub-editor, because we don't, like for example, look at the Star newspaper. The Star newspaper, you cannot compare it with the Nation newspaper. That is a small paper. So we do not need the night editor and the chief sub-editor. So you come to realize that on a small paper like the Star newspaper, that person, the night editor, is given also the roles of the chief sub-editors. So he can oversee the duties of a picture editor and editor.
So if I can ask, So the chief sub editor is a supervisor. He's a supervisor.
That is more like a supervisor. Is more like a supervisor. But we also have what we call the chief editor or the editor in chief. So the editor in chief is the boss of the chief sub editor. So the chief sub editor reports to the editor in chief. Then we have editors. So, or even the ninth editor, you see now the editor, the ninth editor, and the chief sub editor, they all report to the editor in chief, or the chief sub. I mean, or the chief editor, because sub means that you are the deputy of the chief. So it is understood. So we go to something else. And right now we are looking at designing the page. Designing the page. Remember, number one, we talked about typography. Number two, we went to format. Number three, we looked at balance of content. And number four, we are looking at now designing the pages. How do we design the pages? In the first place, what is designing? Designing is simply scheme. Design is simply what? Or in other words, you can say, to design is to plan. To design is to plan. Let's look at design the page or planning the page. How do we plan the page? First of all, you must know that once the overall plan of the paper has been agreed, once people, the chief sub editor and the editors have sat down and they have decided, they have looked at the dummy newspaper, and they have said, they have come to a conclusion, or they have come to an agreement that it is okay. Once it has been agreed, now what happens is the presentation of content become an exercise in design. How we are going to present the content now becomes an exercise in design. It now takes the place of the scheming of the pages. Remember, we said that designing the pages also means to scheme the pages. It now takes the place of scheming of the pages, of which the end product is the page design or layout. So you have to scheme the page. Scheming the page simply means what? It simply means it's like calculating the page. You're calculating the page, or conspirational, or actually let's talk about calculating the page, what the page can handle. Unakaa chini unasema now tumeamua ya kwamba tumeangalia the dummy newspaper, tumeona ya kwamba hii dummy newspaper iko sawa, tumeagree sisi wote kwa editorial. Sasa kama tumeagree, sasa tunaanza kucalculate hii page, tuseme page na page 1 itatoshea content, inatoshea namna gani? Labda yule journalist ambao mlimtuma kule atuletee news alikuja na less materials, ama alikuja na more materials, he has got a lot of news, so to an extent that hiyo page inakuwa ndogo, labda ile space mlikuwa mmemwachia pia ilikuwa ndogo. So therefore, as an editor, you need to reduce the what? You need to edit that story to an extent that it fits the page. So that is what we call skimming. You have to skim the page, of which the end product is the page design or layout. So on a big paper, the night editor and the assistant night editor, just know that the night editor and the assistant night editor, that is the assistant, the sub editor, carefully skim the main news and feature pages of the chief sub. So in short, when you talk about designing the page, is actually making sure that there are sometimes you come to realize that maybe a certain story you had given it a very big space, to be written. Then it turns out it tends to be a very short story. So it means that that particular story that you had given a very huge space and now imekuja ikiwa very short story, then you have to make it long story or come up with something you come up with another story that can occupy the rest of the space. That's what we mean. So in short, designing the pages is making sure that the story are able to fit. The story are able to fit in one if they are edited. Remember, editing means what? To either remove or to add. To remove or to add. If a story is short, you add more information. If the story is long, you shorten it to fit that particular space that it was allocated. The best thing about designing the page, unlike adverts, you can decide where the story should be. So to say your first story, the story making headline was about the budget. Then during the day, something else happens. Then you come to realize that the story that was making story will be pushed back. So the best thing about designing the page is that the editor can decide to remove a story from where it is to another section of the newspaper. Unlike adverts you cannot remove them because that space has already been paid for.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
The character that is being introduced.
Hmm?
Let's say maybe is the language of the newspaper.
When you talk about type character, you're not talking about the language of the newspaper. I don't know that you have been told by somebody that when you're writing, giving an assignment, let it be in times of in what we call Times New Roman or Arial Narrow or something like that, or Callisto MT. Have you ever had such things?
Yes.
I don't believe you.
The font.
Umewahi kusikia kitu kama hiyo? Kwa mfano nakupatia assignment na kuambia hiyo assignment yangu uiandike haya, the style should be Times in New Roman, Arial Narrow, or maybe what we call Callisto, or maybe I'm telling you, and then the font should be font 12, something like that. The spacing should 1.5. Umewahi kusikia vitu kama hizo, si ndio?
Yes.
Now, when you talk about type character, those are the things that we are talking about. When I tell you the type character, maybe I'm telling you I want Times New Roman bold. Now, those are the type characters. So we have various type characters. If you look at your machine, if you have a laptop, there are so many. I don't know how many they are. There are so many. Like I'm looking at some here. There are so many. So many. Maybe I can approximate and say they are around maybe 400. Maybe around 400, something like that. There are so many. Like every newspaper has got their own typeface or type characters. Like Nation has got its own type character, and that is why you are able to distinguish the Nation newspaper more easily, or the Standard more easily, or the Star more easily, because of their type characters. So when you look at a newspaper, you're going to become aware that you will be aware that, or you will come to realize that there is consistent use in the pages of one or two different kind of stories. You come to realize that there is a consistent use of a certain way of writing or style of writing. That is what we call the type character. So the number of stories pointed or printed must be the same, type, or must have the same type, because it will be easy to work through the same type fonts. Like, for example, yeah, it will be very easy to work with the same type fonts because it brings what is called uniform in the design of the newspaper. So in order to achieve balanced reporting, all these things, you're doing them in order to achieve what is called balanced reporting. Make sure that the font is the same, the spacing is the same, that the style is the same, all that. The reason why we are doing it is for us to have a uniform reporting. You can imagine a newspaper that had very, when you look at the first page, it has got it has got different type fonts, very different typefaces, different spacing. When you look at another page, actually all the pages are not uniform. The reason why we have the type character to be the same is for us to have uniformity in that particular paper. So why should we have, so the following should be kept in mind when conducting type character. Number one, you should be aware, you should be able to realize that the type character are there to do what? Let me put it down here so that we all see. Let me put it down here. So the type character is there to do what? It's there to draw the reader's eyes to a page by creating their attention. Once you have the type character, just know their function is to draw attention to the page creation. To the page, creating what is called an attention. Number two is to signpost. To signpost is just like to show a sign. Kama venye unaenda tuseme kwa mfano unaenda safari, unapata kwamba kwa hiyo katika hiyo barabara kuna so many signs. There are so many signs telling you stop, go at 110 kilometers per hour, etc., etc. Now, the typefaces are also like those signs that you see. So there is compose the items and signals by placing type sizes that should be of relevant importance. Apart from that, the type character is used to give the newspaper recognizable visual character by the consistent use of chosen type. Kuna swali mpaka hapo? Then we go to something else called typography. Remember, we had already talked about typography. So our number 8, again, we are looking at typography. Tuliangalia typography, pia tunaiangalia tena. So when we talk about typography, we said that typography is simply the design of the newspaper. Simply the design of the newspaper, or the layout of the newspaper, or the composition of the newspaper. Typography is simply the design, the layout, or the composition of the newspaper. So when you talk about the design, the page design is usually composed of, or typography is simply composed of the following things that I'm going to put there. Simply composed of so the newspaper design is usually composed of text. Number one, it is composed of text. It is composed of headlines. It is composed of pictures, and it is composed of advertisements. So every newspaper design is composed of text, the headlines, the pictures, and the advertisements. So as you read, I want you to look at what we call nataka unapokuwa unasoma peke yako, I want you to look at this is a typography. I want you to look at the serif and the sans serif. Serif and the sans serif. That one is sans serif. You can see that. So I want you to go and read about the serif and the sans serif. But maybe I can give you a glimpse of what they are. When you talk about the serif, is characterized by letters in which the stories are of varying thickness. This style dates back to early Latin inscriptions, and from it has sprung many designs in which numbers are still widely used. Let me give you an example of a sans serif. Sans serif. No, serif. Serif and the sans serif. Let's start with sans serif. Try to share my screen so that we can see the sans serifs. Acha nijaribu kushare my screen. It's become challenging to share a screen. Let me share the screen. So we go back to what we call the use of type. We have already seen how typefaces look like. So page design has to check account of the letters, types in use. So you have to be very cautious when you're looking at the types that you're using. Remember, don't mix types. If you mix, your work looks confusing. The reader is, the reader will not be attracted by your work. So ensure that your typefaces are standard. If you decide to use a particular typeface, let it be like that. Because the moment you start using different typefaces in different pages, in the name of making your newspaper or your story attractive, just know that you're going to confuse the reader, and the reader will not be happy about it. The next time he might not buy even that particular newspaper. So there are some points to watch in page designing. So in designing pages, give the greatest number of headlines in the bold type in an appropriate size. So make sure that the greatest number of headlines are in the bold type and in appropriate sizes. So too many variances can confuse the eye just as much as to many different types. That I've already told you that when you're using the typefaces, use one, don't use many. They confuse the eyes. And it is not, I mean, the reason why we have the newspaper, it's not to confuse the readers. It is not where you show yourself, you show others how you know much English or how you know much of the typefaces and so on and so forth. So make sure that you use at least standard typefaces. When it comes to headlines can be delivered to the pages as white on black type or tint or color. A much used device in popular papers. Also used to summarize or introduce the next part of the text. So the headlines should break around the dissenters on lower cases. On lowercase headline to avoid excessive white between underscore and type. So headlines can be delivered to the page as white or black or type on tint or color. So in short, as far as headlines are concerned, make sure that you are using the right type. Everything falls under what we call typography. Make sure that you use the right type in headlines, in text, and in advertisements, and in pictures. The type is uniform so as not to confuse the readers. Any question? Do you have any question?
It's a general question. I found this in the exam. If you ask between what draws the reader to a story, is it a headline or a lead?
What
draws the reader to a story?
I'm not getting it.
Yes? I'm saying, like, what draws the reader to the story?
Or lures the reader to a story?
Is it the headline or the lead?
It is the headline.
Headline.
Because when you talk about the headline, before even you buy the newspaper, what do you first see?
The headline.
Is it the lead of the story, or is it the lead of the headline?
Headline.
It is the headline. The next thing that you read is the lead. So it is the headline, then the lead. So what rewards the reader to a story is the lead, is the headline. Because once you see the headline, the next thing will be to go to the lead.
Yes.
Ukishaona headline ya newspaper, umenunua ile newspaper, the next thing utafanya utaenda kwa lead, because the lead is a summary. It's a summary of what? The summary of the story, or the news story. So it is the headline.
Okay.
Any other question?
No.
What I want you to do, I want you to there is a section hiyo part ya nini inaitwa newspaper ambao hauko umemaliza.
Yes.
Nataka uende umalizie hiyo story.
Okay.
Kama kuna issue, this particular part will remain open.
So this part.
Hapa nini inaitwa
This big blue button.
the big blue button will remain open. Just in case you have a